Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. It's finally here, Black Friday. We're going to go through all the GPU prices currently right now in November of 2023, and we'll talk about what GPUs you can expect to see huge discounts over Black Friday. We'll also talk about NVIDIA RTX 4000 series supercards. They made a huge announcement just today as I'm filming this. Should you wait for those or should you take advantage of the deals? And of course, we'll go through the best price and performance GPUs at every budget level. Remember, if you get value out of this video, give it a like as it makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Best Buy's amazing deals for content creator gear. Shoot engaging 4K content on the Sony ZV-1 II with ultra-wide angle 18mm lens and large sensor, ensuring crisp in-frame content even in low light. Record it all on the Samsung 256GB microSD card with ultra-fast speeds for amazing 4K footage. Then easily transfer it into NVIDIA Studio and 100 creative apps supported with RTX and AI acceleration using Lenovo Legion Slim 5 with RTX 4060. Produce amazing content and unleash your creativity at Best Buy today using the links in the video description. Let's jump into GPU pricing in November 2023. And the first look, you might say, oh my goodness, Jason, what's going on with these GPU prices? They've gone back up. I thought this was a Black Friday video. Where are my deals? Where are my deals? Well, first, take a time out. Let's take a breath. Good news. I'm filming this on November 9th. So we still have some time left for deals to come out. And typically, while we have early Black Friday deals, usually on monitors, on keyboards, on all kinds of other stuff, the GPU deals tend to come much closer to Black Friday. At least they have in the past. Or they do start before Black Friday. So you got to keep your eyes open. And you can follow me at PC Builder Jason on Twitter, or you can follow us on our community page. We will post those deals as we see them, so check those out. Let's jump in, starting off with the 7900 XTX. So Jason's gone up to $949. That's what it was in September. Yes, those prices in October you're seeing there, those are Amazon Prime Day pricing. Amazon Prime Day and Newegg Fantastic was the other sale. So those prices you're seeing are kind of the lows. And let's focus in on where we think the deals are going to hit. So 7900 XTX right now, tons of stock. They got plenty of models in stock. Look at all these models. And you'll notice there's no promo codes really here. You get Frontiers of Pandora, the Avatar. Has anyone heard of this game? I was not even aware this game existed. I guess you get it for free. If there's a big following, maybe I'm missing it. Let me know down in the comments. But right now, I don't see any promo codes on these cards. That's a good thing. I expect both price cuts and promo codes on these cards. And the 7900 XTX, I mean, we can just take a look at the price back in October, it got all the way down to $889. I would expect to see it maybe around there. The 7900 XT, again, back to September pricing, $779. That's not a good price for that card. Even non-sale pricing, yeeks. $719 in October, much better. Got all the way down to $699 in July. And again, tons and tons of models here, but they're all sitting at that much higher price point. I expect these are poised for discounts. And then the other RX 7000 series card that I would take a look at for discounts, possibly the 7800 XT, although that card is apparently selling very well. But NVIDIA did just cut prices on the RTX 4070. And then with some AIB discounts, you may see some 4070s even cheaper. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these 7800 XTs, because the good news is they're all back in stock. There's none of these that are really out of stock anymore. You'll see these models maybe come down quite a bit in price. The rest of the 7000 series lineup, not that interesting, to be honest. The prices have come up. They're on sale. I do expect them to go back to where they were in October, but 7700 XT, not that interesting with only 12 gigs of VRAM at $429. And the 7600 is kind of ho-hum unless it hits, that $229 price is not bad. But honestly, as we'll see in just a second, you can get other GPUs that are cheaper with roughly the same performance level. So let's jump into RX 6000 series pricing, because I think this is where we're going to see some super steep discounts as AMD tries to absolutely liquidate these cards. Let's start with 6950 XT. There's not that many models left, but they are down again to $599. I think whatever's left out there, really it's the ASRock Phantom Gaming one or the XFX one over at Newegg right now. I think there's a handful over on Amazon. $599. I expect even steeper discounts. They've come down to $599. I expect they will fall even lower than that. Possibly all the way down to $500. We'll have to see how those discounts go. Remember to check those deals out. Then we've got the 6800 XT, and I think another area where they're going to look to completely liquidate these GPUs, because why would you buy one for $479 when you can get 7800 XT for what, like $20 more? It just doesn't make any sense, right? But there are a couple couple models still on the market. Newegg right now lists 5 models that they're selling in the XTX Speedster, Power Color, and ASRock models mostly on the market. Nothing really else from Gigabyte, MSI, or anybody else. So I would expect they are going to put major discounts on these GPUs during the Black Friday period to get rid of them, but I also expect them to sell out. So I wouldn't sit forever and wait. Then we got this 6800 RX 6800 non-XT down at $399. Honestly, not a bad price if you picked it up for $399 right now, because I do believe, again, these are going to sell out. They sold out the last time they went down to $399. They're back to $399. The XTX Speedster, the Power Color Fighter one. I expect all of these are going to get down to that $399. I expect that they will go a little bit lower, but you got to ask yourself, how much more am I going to save versus are they going to sell out or not? Then we got this 6700, 6750 XT. Currently at $309. That basically has preserved its October pricing. I think we'll probably see them in the 280s. It's just going to depend on how close you want to shave it in order to save $20 or $30, because I think AMD really wants to push all the rest of these out the door if they can. And then for the RX 6600, look at that, down to $189, $189. Pretty good pricing on it even right now. I'd pick up that ASRock Radeon one, but I do expect the low price on it was $179 back in July. Prime Day probably hit that again. There are quite a few models still out there that could use that discount. And again, I think AMD would love to shove the rest of these out the door and force you to buy the RX 7600. Before we jump into our NVIDIA GPU pricing, let's quickly cover Intel. Remember last month they introduced the A580 at $179. And at the time I said, hey, crazy because the A750 is $189. Well, you know what Intel said? Hey, we're going to fix that. And you know how they fixed it? They raised prices on the A750. Oh, come on, Intel. What are you doing out there? They raised prices up to $219. Although I will say the A770, after coming down to $269 in October, has gone also back up to $289. So it's really frustrating. Now, we only look at the 16 gig models on the A770 because it's not that much faster than the A750. So really the 16 gigs is the big deal. But I will say it's the cheapest 16 gig card out there right now for $289. Yeah, I'd love to see it much cheaper. The one that had been $269 is now $369. What is going on out there, Intel? And then yes, A750, $219 is the cheapest one. That's the Sparkle card right now. But everybody else jacked their prices up after the A580 came out. Right now, the A580, the only two models out there are the ASRock Challenger one or the Sparkle one. There is no reference card for the Intel one. So if you really want that GPU, and again, I don't know, with the RX 6600, and it just works on everything, only $10 more. Ugh, Intel, you better do better. Let's jump over to NVIDIA GPU pricing, and look at that. We're already seeing a couple of price cuts ahead of Black Friday. I was shocked myself when I put this together. I'm like, I had to double and triple check to make sure that's a real thing. But let's start off with the bad news. The RTX 4090 prices are going up. A ban for the 4090 is going to go into effect. In China and other countries, this is something the US State Department is doing. Basically, they're levying the technology ban on it. And as a result, before it goes into place, they're rushing all the 4090s to sell them for an insane amount right now in China because there's, it's basically kind of shortage syndrome. And all of your GPUs are going away. So if you wanted a 4090 right now, $1,800. And not only that, they're actually going to charge you shipping now. Normally they ship this for free, but that just shows you how much they're just willing to charge the price premium, right? The next model up is $1,849. And then it just goes up from there to $1,899. And then they're all out of stock because they're all being shipped to China right now because that's where they can make the maximum amount of money. So if you wanted a 4090, you really missed your window. You waited too long. There will not be any Black Friday deals. And I don't know when the 4090s are going to come down to a sane level of pricing. Possibly after this ban goes into effect, maybe early next year. For the RTX 4080, we actually see a deal. Black Friday deal for an RTX 4080 down at $1,059. It's not that much higher than it was in July, but in October, we did see them get down on a Black Friday deal. I think it was like $899, which is insane. But this is over at Best Buy right now. You can pick up the Gigabyte, and I actually like this card quite a bit. This is a 4080 Eagle. It's got some nice RGB on it. $1,059. If you've been waiting, maybe not wait that much longer because like we saw with even the $999 deal, they sold out almost instantaneously. So you really got to be lucky to get one of those. I'd say play it safe. Pick up something like this if you've been waiting for the 4080. 4070 Ti down to $749. Again, Galax leading the way here as they have on the 4070 Ti over at Amazon. $749 right now. That's a pretty good deal. And I feel like they're doing this to really put pressure on AMD and the 7900 XT because it's effectively the same price as the 7900 XT right now. It's not a $50 premium. The 4070 stays at $519, but I will say a number of the other ones that had dropped down to $529, like the MSI Ventus models, they're back up to $549. But during Black Friday, I would suspect some of these will probably see $519. And while we won't see any likely see any NVIDIA channel discounts, the AIBs themselves, they can usually cut prices $10 or $15 one way or the other. So I would expect to see these come down even a little bit lower, although honestly, $519 right now is pretty cheap. And then really the only other RTX 4000 series cards that's interesting is the 4060 Ti, 16GB, and no change right now though. Again, I wouldn't be shocked to see that come down to $399 during Black Friday. And then rounding it out with the RTX 3000 series cards, honestly, not much change, except I will say the 3060 remains at $249. I originally thought that was going to just be maybe a Prime Day deal from October, and instead it's still here at $249. That's the Zotac White card. I've posted this a couple times. I don't know if we're going to see 3060 12GB cards get any cheaper than that. Obviously, there's an 8GB version that's more like a 3050 Ti in terms of performance because it's actually slower. That's probably going to come down quite a bit. But all the other 3060 12GB right now, if you've been waiting to get this card, I don't know that we'll see much lower than $249. They're all like $280 on top of this. All right, let's jump into the GPU news. And of course, had to throw a curveball in here. We've got the NVIDIA announcing a special address at CES or around CES, January 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And everybody believes they are going to announce the RTX 4000 series super lineup. That's the super series of cards. What are they going to do? They're basically going to push performance a little bit. They're going to give some of the cards a little bit more RAM. Let's quickly punch through the rumored specs. And I want to emphasize this is all rumored stuff based on kind of just leaks out there. But let's look at the cards themselves. So basically what everyone is expecting is an RTX 4080 Super being launched based on the AD103 die. These are not going to be cut down 4090s. These are going to be AD103. The 4090s, AD102. They have no problem selling the 4090s. They are not going to discount that. And as you can see here, we're expecting a little bit more in terms of the CUDA cores. So we do expect better performance on the 4080. The rumored pricing on this, again, this is from Moore's Law is Dead. I'll link his whole video in the description. I recommend you check it out if you're interested in this. He goes into great detail. This is really sketchy information on pricing in that NVIDIA, up to the moment that they announce these cards, can always change their mind, and they often have. They often have, surprising everybody. But for the 4080, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200, basically, kind of in that realm with the 4080 is already selling at. The 4070 Ti Super, that's right, that's the actual name of that card. It's an abomination. It's going to get, a little stronger, maybe bump up towards 4080 levels of performance, and it's going to get 16 gigs of VRAM, which is probably the most important part of it, because right now that card just can't compete in 4K, the 4070 Ti, with only 12 gigs of VRAM once you turn on, ray tracing and all the extras. That card is rumored to basically be priced around where it is right now, either a super aggressively at $799, which is, the current MSRP, or could get bumped up more to the $900 price point. So it's not going to get any cheaper than it is now. It's going to get slightly more performance. It's going to get a little bit more VRAM. Probably the most interesting of all of these is the 4070 Super. No more VRAM on it, which is unfortunate. It's only got 12 gigs. That's enough for 1440p, although there are games, you turn on ray tracing, ultra settings, it will run out of VRAM. So it's not going to get 16 gigs of VRAM, but it is going to get a nice little bump in terms of its CUDA cores. So we are expecting more performance out of that card. How much more performance is hard to say. And again, Moore's Law is Dead on the pricing, says it's going to basically come in either at the very aggressive price of the current MSRP on the 4070, which is $599, or up to possibly $649 in order to basically kind of just, cash in on that card. So those are the cards that are supposedly going to be announced in January. No idea when they're actually going to hit. I will say though, NVIDIA does have a history of when they announce cards in January, they tend to be available pretty quickly. The 3090 Ti, for instance, was available within about a month. So was the RTX 3050. And then if we look at the 4070 Ti last year that was announced at CES or around CES, it came out pretty quickly as well. So what is all this going to do to GPU prices? Honestly, who knows? But it's going to target the higher end of the market. We're talking kind of a minimum entry price of $600 to $650 for the 4070 Super, and then up from there. So if you're a high-end buyer, and we'll talk more about this in our should you buy now or wait segment, maybe you wait if you absolutely have to have NVIDIA. But for the rest of the market, it probably shouldn't see that much of an impact. And then just really quickly, AMD is going to retire, it looks like, the Polaris series of GPUs. So that's like the 400 and 500 series of cards out there. So you've got like a 580, a 570, 590. It might be time to look at those Black Friday deals right now and pick one up. They're basically just not going to do regular updates for them. They're only going to do critical updates. So they're kind of moving them to the extended period of their support right now. If you're out there and you still own one of these cards, I would definitely think about upgrading. Probably okay to still build an ultra budget rig with a used card, because this is what you can get, because you can always upgrade that later and it's just kind of a stopgap, but just something to be aware of. Let's jump in the best GPU price to performance right now in November 2023. We'll also sprinkle in where I think some deals are going to come in and how that might improve some of the performance here. If you're not familiar with how we do this spreadsheet, we basically take all the GPUs that we're tracking here, both used and new, and their current pricing, either used or new. We take the best price for them and we divide it by their performance. We get a price to performance, and then we break them down 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. If you want to jump into the spreadsheet yourself, this is US pricing. Put in your own pricing. It's linked down in the video description, so check it out. Let's go to the best GPU under $200 in November 2023, at least before any Black Friday deals. And here's the thing about this. You're probably not going to see any Black Friday deals on these GPUs because they're used. So let's just punch through it. If you have about $50 to $100, RX 570 or RX 580 make a ton of sense. You can pick an 8GB model up super duper cheap. And remember, these are all 8 gigs or more VRAM. I would not buy anything with less than 8 gigs in 2023. Even at the used level, because you can get an RX 570 for $47 right now. If you have more like $100 to spend, the GTX 1070 Ti is an insanely good value at about $95 average sale price on eBay right now. A little bit more, the RX 5700 XT will give you insane levels of performance. 1440p in most titles, where if it doesn't run out of VRAM, which is only a small fragment of the new titles that have come out. And then of course, as we go up from there, while I do like the GTX 1080 Ti, it's still stuck around $165. It's got 11 gigs of VRAM, which is nice. And that means it can play all the latest titles without running out of VRAM. But it is long in the tooth. You're buying a 6+ year old card there, and it may be on its way out in terms of support in the near future. So I do like some of the new options, either the Intel Arc A580, which again, you might have to wait a little while in order to get the drivers for new games like Starfield and others that come out. But the Radeon RX 6600, despite having just slightly less performance than the A580 and being slightly more expensive, you can play every game right now, and it's got great performance. 1440p levels of performance in a lot of titles, a lot of older titles especially. So those are good GPUs, and I would expect to see big discounts on them come Black Friday. Moving over to the best 1080p GPU. So this is where the graphics score is 180 or greater, and it's got 10 gigs or more VRAM while being at $350 or less. So that 1080 Ti, man, it's just really making its case out there. Look, the best GPU ever made in terms of its value segment, obviously, just continues to stand there. It's a little old though. 2080 Ti, not so much. That's actually pretty viable if you want to spend about $300. 11 gigs of VRAM. It's not 12, but it's not also, an 8, and that's good. And it's got great performance. But I think the ones that we're going to see Black Friday discounts on, the RX 6700 XT, 6750 XT, they're already pretty low at $309, but we know they'll go at least to $299 because they have in the past. And I suspect we're going to see some blowout deals on the 6700 XT, or possibly some good deals on the 6750 XT, which is about 6% stronger, maybe down in that $299 category as well. And then of course we round out with the RTX 3060. That card's kind of still in no man's land, even at $249. The performance is just quite a bit lower than all the other cards here. But if you have to have NVIDIA and only got about $250, it's probably the one I would pick up. Now moving to the best 1440p GPU, November 2023. Remember, this is before Black Friday sales. Let's quickly go through this, and then I'll point out the cards I think are going to improve their position. RX 6900 XT or RTX 3080 12GB. The 6900 XT had 16. Those are used values. They're up in the 450s. I do like their overall performance. 6900 XT has aged better than the 3080 12GB, and it's also got 16 gigs of VRAM on it. but those are quite a bit more expensive. Those are like in the almost $500 GPUs. If you look at the next category, in terms of price to performance, 6700 XT is already pretty insane. The 3060 is not terrible, but the RX 6800, 7800 XT, even the 6800 XT, where I think we are going to see some deals. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility to see $400 6800 XTs out there. Those are really, really good value. Right now, the 6800 non-XT, $399. I mean, how much cheaper is that thing going to get? Maybe $369? You might just pick it up before it sells up, because that's a great GPU with 16 gigs of VRAM. Because look at AMD's replacement for that, the 7700 XT. Look how much further down the stack that is. It's just bad value at $439. Bad value at $439. And then where is NVIDIA on this list? This is supposed to be a top 10. It's actually a top 13, because people always get cranky when I leave off the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte and the 4070 12 gigabyte. They just don't look, they're just at the bottom of the list, man. At some point, I got to cut them off. So I did put them in here. If we do see some discounts on like the 4070, from a price to performance standpoint, still not fantastic. 4060 Ti, still not fantastic in terms of their overall performance. Again, I like the 7800 XT, and I like looking for discounts on those 6800 and 6800 XT GPUs. All right, best 1440p, 240 hertz GPU. Honestly, there's not much change in terms of the overall positioning. The only thing I will add here is that obviously the graphics score goes up for this. It needs at least a 340 score. So we dropped out some of the weaker GPUs. I use weaker in air quotes because they're not that weak, but these are the GPUs that I would look at for a 1440p, 240 hertz refresh rate across the titles that are going to do that, which are competitive shooters primarily. Obviously, we got our used values, 6900 XT, 3080, 12 gigs, still very strong. And we got that block of Radeon GPUs from the 6800 to the 6800 XT. But if we look down towards the stack, like where's the 7900 XT? Obviously, that price of $779 is really hamstringing it. It was last month much better value because it was $719. So that's one that I expect to see discounts on, and I expect its overall performance to increase on this. So I'd keep my eye out for the 7900 XT in terms of its overall performance, possibly the RTX 4070 Ti, given that they're going to announce a 4070 Ti Super, but it's anyone's guess. NVIDIA does not like to do discounts, and who knows on that. Rounding it out with the best 4K Ultra GPU. So this is like all titles, 4K, about 80 FPS is where we're targeting roughly. The one thing that jumps out at me is the 6950 XT is pretty good value for 4K at $599. And again, it's possible that although there's only a handful of models out there and there may not even be in your region, that might be one to keep your eye on in terms of a deal. But then, of course, we've got the 7900 XT and 7900 XTX, both of which I expect to see substantial discounts on. Then I'm just really wondering, like RTX 4080, we've already got a big discount on that at $1,059. I'm pretty shocked that that one's out there right now. I might even just pick it up if you have convinced yourself you need a 4080. And then, of course, the 4090 is just the 4090. It's the fastest GPU on the planet right now. If you want one, you're going to pay the price premium of $1,819. But hey, if that's what you want and you're building your PC, you just got to kind of bite the bullet and grab it. But I would really focus in on those cheaper deals on the 7900 XT and the XTX. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, what have we been waiting for? We've been waiting for Black Friday, and it's here. It is absolutely here. So let's talk quickly about the structure of it. I will address the NVIDIA Super thing. Remember, that really just pertains to the higher end of the market. But let me look at my calendar here, because as I'm looking at this, Black Friday is on the 24th this year. I looked at the deals from last year in 2022. Remember, 2021 was a total wash. The GPU deals started about a week before Black Friday. So we're talking about like 16th, 17th, 18th. That's when I would really focus on getting a GPU deal. And the best GPU deals all completely sold out before we even got close to Black Friday. They sold out within a couple of days. Some of them did come back in later around Cyber Monday, so there's possible deals there as well. But if you want something, that's when I would be paying attention. Remember to check us out at PC Builder Jason on Twitter. And of course, our YouTube community page, I'll leave link down in the video description. So let's go through. Let's start off with the ultra budget level. Honestly, you're probably going to end up buying a used GPU. So I would wait until Black Friday went through and see if you can get a really, really good deal out there on maybe a RX 6600. I expect that GPU will probably hit like the 179, 169 price we've previously seen for it. And then you never know. know, maybe a 6650 XT will get super cheap, or maybe the RTX 3060 will have an insane deal. It's an NVIDIA card, so probably not, but you get the idea. More for the mid-range, honestly, the 6700 XT, 12 gigabyte, or the 6750 XT, or the 6800 16 gigabyte card. Those are all great values, and I would look to scoop one of those up as soon as those GPU deals started to pop. Possibly, maybe you'll pick one up for like $270, $280, and we might be able to find some more premium versions of those cards on sale, or the 6750 XT might come down to that price as well. Then more in the mid-range. Now here's where things get a little bit complicated. If you wanted to buy a 7800 XT or 6800 XT, I think you're gonna find deals aplenty on those. The 6950 XT, if you have a couple of deals out there, I think any AMD thing, you'll see significant deals. On the NVIDIA GPU side, if you only want NVIDIA in the upper mid-range to the high end, honestly, I would probably wait. I would probably wait to see what they offer. I do think the 7900 XT is still gonna perform really, really well against it. And I think AMD is really gonna bring the discounts on Black Friday. I could be wrong about that, of course, but we'll see what the discounts actually are. And then at the ultra high end, honestly, if you haven't bought your 4090, you kind of missed the boat, so to speak. And I would just go pull the trigger on anything that you can find right now, or you're probably gonna be waiting until next year, to get that. On the 4080 side, the 4080 Super doesn't seem like it's gonna be that much more performative, but we'll have to see. Again, I would wait. 7900 XTX, I expect we are going to see some pretty good deals on that, possibly down in the 800s. So again, I'm not something that I would wait for. I just pull the trigger when the deals come. If you got value out of this video, give it a like, because it makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe. Click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Hey, speaking of cool content, we just put out an amazing video on the PC case market, which has completely changed for the holiday shopping season. You got to check it out. Right here, we go through all that you need to know to find the best PC case deal in 2023 holiday shopping season. And we'll catch you on the next one.